fatigue can be really hard to manage, and it's one of those symptoms that certainly does go with AF and can be troublesome. I guess it's about doing a little bit of planning. We use the word pacing. Marathon runners would be familiar with that. And it's around looking at how much you have to do and kind of trying to spread that out to be a bit of an even pace. So it might be that you've still got things you need to do on a day that you're experiencing AF symptoms, but you spread those out, or you break them up into smaller tasks. So even simple things like hanging out the washing, maybe you do need to have a little rest in between kind of hanging out a few things and just take your time. Because sometimes lowering your expectations of yourself can be quite important as well to manage that fatigue. And there's a temptation often when we're feeling physically okay to do a whole heap of stuff, and that can also burn us out and actually leave us feeling more fatigued. And we use the term boom and bust. That's sort of you do a whole heap of activity and then you feel exhausted, and often people experience a lot of symptoms when they have a bust. So the opposite of that would be sort of spreading activities out, taking regular breaks and rest. Often on a bad day it can be hard to even think about what might help you. So when you're having a good day, it can be useful to put some plans in place for those kind of strategies and supports that might help you on a bad day. It might be having certain people around you or certain people that you can call. It might be having some sort of low-level activities that actually help boost you, whether it's a favourite movie to watch or a book to read or some music to listen to or some relaxation to do. Kind of a range of things that can help you actually get through a bad day. And I think sometimes when we are having those bad days or experiencing lots of symptoms, we might need to ask for help. Having those people around you that you can ask for help, people who understand that sometimes you do just need that little bit of extra, and people that you can call on. You can also do a little bit of planning ahead. If you know that there are certain times or certain times of the day that are harder for you, see if you can plan ahead. Maybe put some meals in the freezer for those times. Do some thinking around how you can keep your energy up for those times that it might be a bit harder. I think for all of us, sleep's really important, and when we don't have a good night's sleep, it impacts on how we feel physically, but also how we feel emotionally. Life's a lot harder to actually cope with when we haven't slept well. So looking at your sleep and how you can sometimes improve that can be really worthwhile. There's some really good tips actually on the website depression.org.nz it runs through, but the main ones would be looking at what time you're going to bed and trying to have a regular bedtime, and likewise having a regular time that you get up during the day. Our bodies actually like routine. Trying to have an environment that's conducive to sleep, so that means quite dark, no computers in your room. Thinking about having a good wind down for bed, not doing any high stimulating activity just before you go to bed, or drinking lots of caffeine or alcohol just before you go to bed, because those sort of things can impact on our sleep. I guess the other thing that impacts on our sleep can be worries, particularly if we are kind of worried about our symptoms or our heart. And often we talk to people who say they just lie awake and they're conscious of their heart or thinking about those symptoms. So looking at some strategies to actually help manage some of those worries can be useful. So we work with people quite a lot about maybe the thoughts that they're having, how balanced they are, how realistic they are, whether they can be changed. We also teach people relaxation, and that's kind of strategies for actually relaxing their whole body and their mind, and sort of relaxation meditation type techniques, which can be really useful for helping people drift off to sleep as well. Sometimes we can just be lying in bed waiting to get to sleep and watching the clock and just kind of saying, when am I going to get to sleep? When am I going to get to sleep? And that in itself can be quite counterproductive and not that helpful for getting to sleep. So the general advice is, if you've been lying in bed awake for 10 or 15 minutes trying to get to sleep and it's not working, just get up and do something low level for maybe half an hour or 20 minutes until you feel tired again, and then try again. And sometimes that can be a lot more useful than just lying in bed worrying about sleep. And the other advice about worries, if you're kind of awake and you've got worries going round and round in your head, get up and write them down on a piece of paper. And sometimes we find if we can just write them down, they're out of our head, they're still going to be there in the morning, but we don't have to be going over and over them. And then people often find they can fall asleep. Sometimes we need something distracting to do as well, and people often talk about counting sheep. I don't know if you've tried counting sheep, but I find it quite boring, and I find that other thoughts come into my mind and it just doesn't work. What does work for me and many people that I know is something that we call the alphabet game. And it's you go through letters of the alphabet, starting with A, and try and think of a fruit or a vegetable for each letter. And actually, it's a little bit engaging, so you can't be thinking about other things when you're doing it, but it's also quite boring. And so people find that they might drift off to sleep after a while of playing the alphabet game. So it's worth giving a go.